What claims are just not backed by the historical facts? There has never been a Viking helmet found that had a horn attached to it. I'm sick of curriculum materials teaching my fourth graders that the Spanish discovered Florida when they were looking for the fountain of youth. That lie was developed in the 1920s as a tourist gimmick. There's literally nothing in the historical record that supports it. Marilyn Monroe never said, "If you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best." There is literally no documented proof she ever said that. That ancient people thought the earth was flat. We have records from around 430 BC where Greek philosophers spoke of the earth being a sphere. In 240 BC, the Greek astronomer Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the earth and was only about 2% out. That binary numbers were first used by Leibniz. Most computer histories make this claim. But there's an existing manuscript page by the English mathematician Thomas Harriot that includes binary numbers and binary multiplication that was written around 1605. 40 years before Leibniz was born. Edit. Spelling. This may be more a prehistoric misconception, but the idea that individuals in hunter-gatherer or caveman societies are stupid. Imagine how difficult that life is and all of the things every individual has to know in order to survive. There is no infrastructure or existing structural supports. Everything has to be done by hand. These societies have to know which plants are edible, what animals will be where during which times of year, how to treat injuries without any sort of medical equipment. Imagine any aspect of your life and now imagine it without any modern comforts at all. Relationships and hierarchies are maintained without use of record keeping. Food is gathered and prepared without any means of long-term storage. Now remember that the entire planet was settled this way. From the African veldt to the Scandinavian fjords, and from the Atacama Desert to the islands of the Pacific. And these people utilized some pretty ingenious discoveries and inventions to do these things. Corsets were not typically tight-laced. They were only tight-laced by the highly fashionable women, and usually only for particular events or portraits. Corsets were designed to be comfortable. Women wore a cotton layer underneath the corset, so it didn't rub against the skin. The corset was more like a bra. But instead of using the shoulders to support it, used the whole torso. Some people claim they are much more comfortable than modern bras. The intense proportions of the past were achieved with corsets and padding. Tight lacing was uncommon, but layers of petticoats or hoops or bum rolls or whatever else at the time was very common to give women the trendy body shape at the time. Vomitoria were passages designed to accommodate large crowds, not rooms for actual vomiting. Vomit comes from Latin for spew forth. Well, for starters, the claim that Napoleon was short is just not backed by historical facts. The guy was average height for his time. It's like saying your 5 feet 8 inches friend is a giant because he hangs out with a bunch of kindergartners. The idea that medieval, early modern people, especially peasants, were filthy, had poor hygiene and never left their villages. Medieval people cleaned themselves and their clothes fairly regularly. They even cleaned their teeth by chewing split twigs. Also, it was fairly common even for peasants to travel to pilgrimage sites on holy days, periods. That ancient humans were dumb. Einstein being a low-level student, his grades were average to top tier of the class, and he was pretty damn good academically. General Omar Bradley was stopped by MP during the Battle of the Bulge in WW2 due to them thinking he was a Nazi infiltrator. The irony was that he was stopped because he correctly identified the capital of Illinois as Springfield when the officer thought it was Chicago. Never did Marie Antoinette say, "Let them eat cake," to be honest. History has demonized that poor child. She was married to a moron. She was in a foreign country. And she had no idea what she was doing. That the pyramids were built by Jewish slaves. The Egyptians were good at record keeping, and none of their records say anything about slaves being used for the construction of the pyramids. Edison invented the light bulb. Abner Doubleday inventing baseball in Cooperstown, New York. Young Earth creationism is not the historically believed position of the early Christian Church or the ancient Church. It's a fairly recent theological position initially purported by Seventh-day Adventists, but quickly became popular with fundamentalists due to backlash over evolution becoming mainstream. Before that, most people saw the creation narrative in Genesis as a narrative myth and was not meant to be read as scientific fact. Catherine the Great did not do that with a horse. That every woman in the Middle Ages married at 12 or 13 and started having babies immediately. And they did not love and mourn their children as much as we do. That people in the Middle Ages thought the earth was flat.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.